You might have came across article headlines saying that £120,000 a year is the worst salary you can earn in the UK. Or maybe you've seen some of the viral TikToks that have been made from chartered financial experts talking about how this is the worst amount you could be earning in the UK. Some of these videos even say that if you've got 3 kids, you'd be better off making half that salary, as you'd end up being better off. And as expected, a major part of the virality of these videos and articles is that, well, the average person hears that 120k is the worst salary, and they think they've got to be having a laugh. So what's this all about? Is there some kind of like conspiracy being pushed by some right-wing think tank to make the average person feel a bit, you know, more sympathetic towards the high earners of society? Or is there actually some facts that they're speaking from here? And I'll give you a hint. From a tax perspective, you could maybe make this argument. So with that, my name's Ross Kelly. I'm a level 4 diploma holder in regulated financial planning. And in this video, we'll look at that claim. Is £120,000 a year the worst salary to earn in the UK? Or they're just talking a bunch of rubbish? And at the end of the video, for the lucky few who might find themselves in that situation, we'll also look at some things you could do to mitigate the tax holes that you might be falling into. I just want to first address the elephant in the room and say that off the bat, 120k isn't exactly a problem that a lot of people would say that they would suffer from. The average salary in the UK for full-time workers at the moment is around £37,000 according to the Workers' Union polls. And obviously, that's quite a far cry from the victims earning 120k. And then when you bear in mind that that figure doesn't bear in mind any part-time workers, as well as the fact that, you know, the London area really brings that average up a little bit, a lot of people just can't see any problems with earning 120k. Quick little fact to bring up actually, is that if you were to remove London from the UK, the total wealth of the UK would be less than Mississippi, which is not just one state in the US, but it's also actually the poorest state in the US. So yeah, kind of shows how far the British Empire's fallen. But back onto the topic of the video. How do people claim that 120k is the worst salary in the UK? It basically comes down to certain allowances being removed when you hit certain levels of income to do with income tax. But don't worry, I'll keep it simple for this video so it's easy to digest. In case you didn't know, the UK tax system works in a progressive sense, so different amounts of your salary are taxed at different rates. The whole thing isn't just taxed at a single rate. And importantly for this video, you also get something called your personal allowance. This is an amount of £12,570, which is taxed at 0%. So effectively, for most people, that just means that whatever your taxable amount is, you just take that 12,000 off the top. With the bands specifically, you have up to 37,700 at the basic rate of 20%, and then you have anything between that amount and 125,140 taxed at 40% or the higher rate. And then if you're earning anything above that, you're on the additional rate of 45% anything after that. To more easily visualize this, here's a graph from the IFS Tax Lab. On the bottom of the graph, you see the amount that you're earning in income, and on the vertical axis, you see the tax rate that's been applied to that income. And as such, where you see these bumps in the graph, that shows a change in the income tax that's being paid on the earnings. A quick disclaimer, this graph isn't entirely accurate for Scottish people. We have different bands, a bit more of them. You know, unlucky, you know, forgotten as always. But the principle, it's still broadly the same. Now, the keen-eyed among you might notice that there's bumps at all the tax bands that I previously mentioned, but there's also this extra bump, a particularly large one, at the 100k mark. Now, obviously you might think that's a bit weird considering that there's no new tax band at that point, but that's where the topic of this video comes into play. This is due to the fact that at 100k, you start to diminish your own personal allowance. This happens at a rate of £1 lost from your personal allowance for every £2 you earn over 100k. So basically, you just take whatever amount you earn over 100k, divide it by 2, and then you take that away from your personal allowance, and that's how much you would have left. As a result of the depleting personal allowance, even though you're not getting taxed at a different rate, your effective tax rate jumps up drastically while you're depleting your personal allowance. And after doing the math, it ends up being an effective tax rate of 60% between 100k and £125,140. And to make my Scottish brethren feel even better about this scenario, the way our bands work, when we're at that rate, our effective tax rate is 67.5%. So yeah, pretty rough. Now, this is way higher than the advertised 40% that you thought you'd be getting taxed at this rate. So this is why a lot of people end up falling into this trap without even knowing it. And paying 60% of your wage towards it, especially when you might not even know about it, it's obviously going to feel a bit shit for anyone involved. But that's only when we look at income tax. We're not even including national insurance at this point. If you're at the range where you're losing your personal allowance, you're also getting 4% of your income taken for national insurance as well. It's also worth bearing in mind that people earning this much income likely had to go to, you know, higher education to be able to qualify for these roles. And unless they had the bank of mum and dad, they were likely having to take out student loans. And as such, let's say if you took out an undergraduate loan and a postgraduate loan, you'd also be paying another further 15% back in your student loans. And that brings the cumulative tax bill up to a frankly eye-watering 79% overall, which is Geez, oh. Now you might brush that off thinking, you know, people earning that money, they're going to be the CEOs and bankers and such. But in reality, that covers a lot of professions. People like doctors, engineers, dentists, pilots, a lot of them end up falling into this category as well. Outside of the tax arena, you also become ineligible for the £30,000 childcare allowance that's coming up. This rolls out at the end of 2025. And if both parents earn under 100k, you know, that's each, it doesn't matter what it adds up to if you add both the wages together, if both of them earn under 100k, they become eligible for the 30k, and that's to cover childcare costs. And when you bear in mind that the average nursery cost in the UK is about 12 to 13,000 per year, you understand why them viral videos mentioned earlier in the video claim that if you've got 3 kids, you might be better off earning less than 100k to be able to get that free childcare allowance. Between this tax trap and then what a lot of people call just stupid VAT rules, it's not hard to understand why the UK has had a real problem when it comes to growth in the past couple of years. In case you didn't know, for small business owners, they need to register for VAT tax once they earn over £90,000 a year. And this isn't a progressive tax like income. Once you're over that, the full amount of your earnings are subject to the VAT. This effectively means that for a company who was earning 90k a year and now is subject to VAT, they would then need to earn 108k to be keeping the same amount of money after the tax. This can lead to a lot of businesses who might not be growing at like a super fast rate to not take that risk and try and earn over that threshold, as they're afraid maybe the hit that they'll take from the increase in tax will end up stalling out their business. And so between that and the tax trap, it's not exactly surprising to see that, you know, it appears to be more and more people leaving to go to slightly sunnier, less tax intense places like Dubai and stuff. But now back to the topic of the video, we're going to look in detail at 3 different earning profiles and get a look at exactly how much tax each person will be paying and where that's coming from. But before we do that, if you're finding the video interesting, be sure to drop a like and subscribe. It really does help the channel out a lot. And it helps me continue to bring, you know, financially informative videos to you. And be sure to drop a wee comment down below. What do you think about, you know, the effective 60% tax rate, or even like the tax regime as a whole? Do you think it's the right amount, not enough, should be more? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. But with that, let's get into the examples. I'm also going to leave a link to the calculator I've used for this in the description. So if you want to, you know, play about with some numbers, you can do that yourself. So we'll say we'll have 3 earners. We'll have one on the average UK salary wage of £37,000 a year, one on £75,000 a year, and then one on, you know, the worst salary, 120k a year. And to make it a bit easier to follow along, we'll bring up a wee table here so it's easy to get a good comparison between them. So as person 1 is earning under 100k, they still have their full personal allowance. So they can take that off of their wage, and then what's left will be the effective taxable amount. So after taking off the 12,570, we're left with £24,430. That's a taxable amount. So we're just taking that amount, we're timesing it by the 20% basic rate tax, and that leaves us with a tax bill of £4,886. I also got a wee bit in the table here to include the national insurance, just to give you like a full idea of what you're actually taking home. For brevity's sake, I won't go into how the national insurance is calculated. It's also banded and it's based on weekly earnings. So, you know, you'll just need to trust me, or, well, the calculator I'm using for it. But for this earner, we've got a national insurance charge of £1,953 per year. And so taking this away from the, you know, income earned as well as the tax bill, you're left with about 30 grand of take-home pay, or a monthly pay slip of £2,513. This means that the percentage of their wage that they're actually taking home in pay is about 82%. We now move on to person 2, who again is earning 75k a year. Again, as they're earning under 100k, they've still got access to their full personal allowance. So we're just going to follow the same process and take that off at the top of their earnings, and then that leaves their taxable amount. The difference is that this earner is going to be both in the basic rate band and the higher rate band. So some of the income will be getting taxed at 40% as well as 20%. And after calculating that out, that gets you around a tax bill of £17,432. You can then throw in the national insurance charge of £3,510 for this earner, and this leaves them with a take-home pay of £54,057, or a monthly wage of £4,504. This means that the percentage of the wage that they're actually getting to keep after taxes is about 72%. I hope now you can see the utility of me including this percentage figure, as it lets you compare the difference in how the tax is affecting your take-home pay. In the case of comparing earner 1 and earner 2, earner 2 is earning double the amount of money that earner 1 is, yet their difference in, you know, percentage paid in tax is only about 10%. So bear that in mind moving forward. We'll now look at the final earner, who's on, you know, the dreaded amount of 120k a year. Now, as they earn over 100k, that means that they're beginning to diminish their personal allowance, and they lose that at a rate of £1 for every £2 they earn over. So all we're going to do is take the 20k that they earn over 100k and divide it by 2, so £10,000. and we take that away from their personal allowance. This leaves them with a personal allowance of £2,570. As such, when we compare it to the other two earners, this one isn't going to have the full £12,000 taken away before working out the tax. This person's only going to have the £2,570 taken away. So once we do that and then apply the tax band in the same way, we end up with a tax bill of £39,432. In addition to that bill, we also of course have the national insurance, which in this case is £4,410, so we're taking that away as well. And this leaves earner 3 with a take-home pay of £76,157, or that would be £6,346 per month. Obviously, not too bad, I'd be pretty happy taking home 6k a month, I would think. But now we look at the percentage of income they're actually taking home, and in this case, they're taking home a percentage of only 63%. So as you can see, the percentage of income that you're actually taking home really does begin to diminish when you hit that threshold. As you can see, from person 1 to person 2, the amount of take-home pay doubles, but from person 2 to person 3, we're not doubling it, yet the difference in the amount of take-home pay is about the same, both of them decreasing by about the same amount. Again, highlighting that you really do begin to take home less and less as you get to that point of earning. And yeah, I'm sure a lot of you, you have your tiny violins out here and oh, he's only taking home 6k a month. But it's food for thought, especially when you bear in mind to be earning that type of income, you're likely in a higher cost area like London. And then you add on the possibility of also paying back student loans as well. People earning this amount of money might not actually be, living the luxurious life that you might imagine. Earning that much money doesn't even put you in the top 1%. Yet you're paying an effective tax rate of, 60 or 70% depending on student loans and stuff. But if you're to then look at the effective tax rates of people in the 0.1% or 0.001%, you'll find that their effective tax rates are actually way lower than these people. As such, you would imagine the government might try and focus on that group of people to try and get them to pay a wee bit more, but they seem to really hammer down on the people in about the 100k price range and continuing to make them pay more and more tax. But yeah, I'll come down from the soapbox now, and we'll lastly touch on a couple things that you can maybe implement in your own financial planning to be able to avoid these tax traps if you find yourself earning that much money. Saying that though, do bear in mind that this isn't financial advice. Again, every person's situation is going to be different, so it's definitely worthwhile seeking out a professional to get a look at your specific situation and find out what might be best. These points are just something they might want to bring up type of thing, or at least you'll be primed with the knowledge going into the meeting so that you know what they're talking about. The simplest method and probably the most common method for avoiding this tax trap is using salary sacrifice. And so basically, as the name entails, you sacrifice some of your salary and put it directly into your pension instead. This basically gives you an effective tax saving of 60% if you're bringing yourself down below that 100k, and also bringing yourself down below the 100k will also make you eligible for the stuff like the childcare allowances. In a similar vein, you could also take advantage of any other company benefits that might be offered to you, things like company cars or better private medical insurance type of thing, to bring your earned income down below that 100k threshold to get you out the tax trap. You could also, if you're so charitably inclined, donate through a charity type of thing and then get gift aid relief as a result. But with that, we'll bring the video to a close. Obviously saying 120k is a terrible salary. It's great for article headlines or YouTube videos, wink wink. But I hope this video has shown a minimum of how messy the tax system can actually be, and how it's important to stay informed about this stuff so that you make the right financial decisions for yourself. I mentioned how salary sacrifice into your pension is a great way to avoid the tax trap. But do you know how pensions work exactly? If not, be sure to check my video here that covers pensions in details and explains why they might just be your most powerful tool when it comes to saving for retirement. And if not, until next time.